I said I was going to try to stay away from hot takes. Here's one. I have not seen, generally speaking, that educational content works for brand accounts. Now, everyone is going to fight with me on this. I know. But our audience wants education. But like our clients, our customers always ask us about it. Yes, they do, but they are not asking you for that on their social accounts.
This is Metrics and Chill, where you'll learn practical strategies to drive consistent and predictable growth. All right, Darien, thank you so much for joining Metrics and Chill today. Really appreciate you coming on and looking forward to talking all things social.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So I'll let people trickle in. I'll kind of set the stage. Obviously, as we go live, a few people are coming in from other platforms and stuff like that. So if you're new to Metrics and Chill, this is like a live component of the show. So Darien and I are going to chat about crafting a social strategy that drives pipeline for your company, that drives actual revenue, how to find out what social content resonates with your audience and leads to bottom of funnel results. If you have questions at any point throughout that time, go ahead and drop them in chat. If you're on LinkedIn or YouTube, you can drop them in the comments there, I think, and we'll still get them here on the platform. And then at the end, we'll leave time and we'll ask all these questions. So if you've got questions, drop them anytime. You don't need to wait till the end. So, for those who don't know, can you give a little bit of your background, Darien? Like, what got you interested in social specifically as a channel to generate pipeline for businesses? Like, I know you've got, maybe a good way to kick it off would be like, can you walk us through kind of what got you interested? And then you've got a really cool success story of like how you generated 300K in pipeline for a company. I would love to like hear the background of that.
Yeah. So a little bit of background, and I'll do a little bit of a roundabout way, but answer the question. So Antidote is actually my second agency. So right out of college, I started a social media agency under the inspiration of watching Gary Vee. Somewhere in the middle of college, I got hit with a Gary Vee YouTube recommendation. And I was like, oh, this guy's on fire. This is so interesting. I should do what he's doing. You know, when you're in college, you don't know what you actually want to do regardless of your major.
Sure, yeah.
Most people I know didn't know. And so started that, eventually worked in B2B social. And B2B marketing. So started working inside of actual tech companies in-house role. And my role was almost always the very first social media marketer in the company. Okay. And so from the outset in social, I've been building these programs from the ground up to something. And so I'd done that at a few companies and then realized that there was a lot of demand and I was getting so many questions from other people at other organizations about B2B social. Now, even though it's still not as big as like B2C social, it's a lot more interest and there's a lot more conversation happening on the internet about it than there was in 2020 and in 2019 when I first started. And so I was getting a lot of questions about it. And that made me wonder, what would it be like if I like started an agency and did it myself? And luckily during the great layoffs of 2022, I mean, it was a little bit of a blessing and a curse, but I got laid off and I was like, okay, this is my opportunity. And I started Antidote. In terms of using it as a channel to generate pipeline, honestly, it came from just a need to prove the worth of the channel to internal stakeholders when I was working internally. We'd often have conversations as a marketing team about campaigns and product launches and different things. And social was kind of just seen as this channel where like, let's just throw something up on social. And it, as a social person, of course, this is like, I'm going to treat social as my baby. I'm going to want more than to just like throw any random copy or piece of creative on the channel. And so I tried to have those conversations. And after a few rounds of like conversations on the side with managers and other coworkers, what I realized is that if I wanted social to have a real seat at the table, we had to start talking in a way that our senior leaders, both at the marketing level, so CMOs or head of marketing, and then also at the executive level, so like C-suite, and whether that's like the CEO or someone else who was CRO in some cases, we reported up to, making sure that we were speaking the language that they were speaking. And it wasn't just us speaking the language, or I wasn't just speaking the language that I understood. And so that is when we started thinking about, all right, what does it actually take for social to drive pipeline? And that started this whole sort of experiment of different tactics, different strategies, that led us to where we are today. So a little bit of a roundabout answer, but hopefully that gives some context.
No, I love it. I want to pick on a couple things you said here. The first is like, I've seen other content leaders talk about this, and it's so critical. John Bonini, who's now, former director of marketing here, and now off to, helping other companies create great content, is like, he would say this a lot, like, you've got to be able to speak in a language that senior leadership is going to understand, right? And everyone wants to know, like, okay, how is this going to generate pipeline? How is this going to generate revenue? And I think sometimes, especially like on the social side, or on the content side, there's this tendency to be like, well, we just kind of intuitively get it, maybe like, well, we're going to create great content. It's going to resonate. People are going to subscribe to it. They're going to pay attention to it over enough time. They're going to get to know what we do, what pains we solve, all these things. And then like, in the end, that's going to result to pipeline. But there's not, first of all, it's not that clear to everyone at your company, to your point. And for two, the second thing that you picked up on is like, what's the best strategy to actually do that? Because that's something like we've wrestled with here. And I've like, I've changed the sort of hook or angle of a couple of our content programs a couple times, because it's like, wait a minute, like, is this just generating impressions, or is this like building demand for the product? So it's like, it's definitely possible to generate a content program that gets a lot of attention and all your peers talk about for how innovative and cool it is, but to leadership's point, is not necessarily generating demand for your product. So that's one area I would love to start on. Like, what do you think the difference is? And when you look at, like, before we get into sort of like what social content resonates, I would love your thoughts on, like, here you have content program A, which is like generating a lot of attention, is really unique, is something your peers haven't seen before, but maybe is not generating a lot of results for the business, or not generating a lot of demand for the business. And over here is strategy B, which is, what do you think the differences are there? Or when you explored, what will it take to use social to generate pipeline? What were some of the lessons that you learned?
That's a great question. So I think it comes down to one of the fundamental elements of marketing, which, as like, I feel like we kind of rediscover these principles all the time. We're like, oh, the old thing is still the new thing. And it's not like actually that old. That principle still applies. And that is primarily offers. What we see from, there are two, I think, different pillars in a organic social program that can drive pipeline, and I'll talk about the second one first, and then we'll get to the other one. The second one is campaigns. And so talking about offers, a lot of marketing campaigns, even the ones that are going to social, or maybe they're being pushed across, like they're an integrated campaign going across multiple channels, they very seldom actually focus on the offer, which is like, it sounds very obvious in a way, but when you think about it, when you're pushing out content to a bunch of people who may or may not actually know what your product does, or why they should do it, or why they should buy it rather, why they should stop and switch from another competitor, you need something to actually pull them in and to entice them. So this is twofold. Let me back up. This is actually twofold, because number one, I don't think a lot of B2B companies, or most B2B companies, run enough campaigns. That's number one. Okay. And when I say campaigns, it doesn't just have to be a product launch. There are other ways that, whether it's a new message or it's the same message and you're just repackaging something that you've already been doing under a new offer. I'll give an example of this. I saw this tweet on Twitter, or X, whatever you call it. I'm never going to call it X. Sorry. But I saw this tweet the other week from Beehive. And it was a video going after one of their competitors and something. And it was a very spicy thing. Some people's taste, some not others. I get it. But frankly, they were not announcing any new products. They were not announcing any new features. They weren't announcing anything new, frankly, other than launching a new offer and using an angle of like current events to kind of get their audience's attention. I don't know what it drove in terms of pipeline, but I can tell you, looking at the comments, I'm very sure that it was like a ROI positive campaign for them. And the reason why is they said, all right, here's the angle, here's the problem that we're trying to solve, here's what we're going to do for you. And a lot of product launches miss that. A lot of campaigns and marketing miss that. They're just like, okay, hey, we're going to create this flashy product video. But then it's like, all right, now that I've seen this, why am I going to stop my day to actually go click this and go buy this product or set up a call with your sales team? So I think that is one of the biggest missing pieces. And frankly, if more B2B companies ran more campaigns, I think they would see more pipeline. The other thing I think is founder-led content. In the earliest stages, that's actually your best bet, is to focus on founder-led content and making sure that you're building an audience of people who actually want to support the product and not just creating content for the sake of generating likes or generating comments, things like that, which I know that's a question you were going to ask about. So we can talk about that. I don't want to get ahead of the other questions, but I think to summarize my point there, the offer, I think it's really missing. And if you were to create this or treat this as some sort of framework, if you will, and we do this internally, but I call it TCO, the target. So who are you actually trying to go after? Who in your ICP are you trying to reach? And being very, very, very clear about that and being willing to say, okay, we are trying to reach this particular person or this particular role title inside of target companies. We are okay with saying no to everyone else and not doing that. Well, we also do this. Like that happens so much in companies. So target number 2 is the creative. Are you creating something that actually will stand out? And so we talk a lot about platform native content instead of like social native content, because there's a lot of like ways that you can create content that works on social, but it may not work for the particular platform that you're publishing to.
Right.
And then the last one is the offer. And so like once you've found the target, once you've created content that will work for that particular platform, are you creating an offer that will entice people, make them stop and go click and actually take the next step that you want them to take?
Okay. Man, I don't even know where, there's like so many notes I just took and I want to talk about all of it and I don't even know where to start. So I'll just try and sort of like, no, dude, this is amazing. Okay. I love TCO. I'm like, my chicken scratch writing as you're talking was like, I wrote like more campaigns and I put 3 points under it. Like what? Like what is the message, the POV or angle, and then the offer. I like, your TCO thing. One of the things I think you're bringing up here is it sounds like one of the things that's missing is a point of view or an angle. Like in the Beehive thing, I think I saw the same campaign. Yeah. They were willing to put a flag in the ground, right? And not that everything has to be that spicy or, like you don't have to crap on your competitors or whatever, like, but they are willing to have a point of view or an angle or to say, hey, like you shouldn't feel this pain. Like there should be a better way to do this or there should be a better solution. And to your point, I feel like a lot of what I see for campaigns is just the announcement. It's just the what. It's like this new thing is here. And then like there's a little bit about it, but there's not a lot around like, hey, before this thing existed, here was this world you lived in. Like here was this pain that you felt. We felt like it shouldn't be this way, or we think that more companies should, be this way and not that way. And so we created this thing. So that's the first thing I'm picking up from what you said is like more companies also could be adding in a point of view or an angle. And then the offer, I feel like here it made me think, do a lot of companies confuse offer with CTA? Like, I feel like I hear everybody talk about CTA, which is like, what do you want them to do at the end? We want you to click here, learn more, book a demo, start a free trial. Help people understand, how does the offer on social differ than the call to action?
Yes. So very, very good point. The call to action is really just a way for you to tell someone what the next step is, right? So you want them to book a call, you want them to learn more, you want them to click the link. That is fine. until your point or the purpose of the piece is to actually drive pipe, or to drive like some sort of conversion event. In that case, with like, for example, take a product launch, if you want people to actually do something, you have to do more than say, hey, click this, because they know, like, people have been on social long enough to know that there's going to be a blog link or a link to the site, to the landing page. When I think about offers, this is like again, old is new again. So this is like a like real direct response sort of tactic of what are you going to give people? How do you create like this irresistible, enticing way to draw them in? So let's use Beehive again. I don't remember all of the details of their offer, but it was really solid. I think they were given 6 months free, white glove migration, and a few other things, maybe some ad credits. Don't quote me on that because I don't want them to say that I said they were doing something they didn't. But I think it was something to that effect. There was an actual sort of like, hey, if you want to try us out, we want to de-risk this for you. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to give you a trial, a free trial. We're gonna give you white glove support, especially when you're going after a competitor. This is important. And frankly, I'll say this, Jeremiah. One of the funny things about this is like, I think most companies know this because they do it on their sales side. They do this all the time with like sales calls or with like partnership calls. Like, hey, in SaaS, partnerships are becoming a bigger piece of the revenue, or a bigger revenue driver for a lot of SaaS companies we talk to. And they know this. They know like you need to provide white glove support. But then the marketing team comes around and they're like, hey, here's our thing. Go click it. Maybe.
Right.
So anyway, it is how do you de-risk that next step for your ICP or for the person that you're trying to target? And then it's making it irresistible. Again, it is traditional direct response, but that's what these campaigns are anyway.
Now, okay, so something that this brings up then is I can imagine an objection being like, okay, well, this is great if we have a big following and if we were getting a lot of organic love from these platforms on our brand account. Well, first of all, we didn't specify. Is this mostly organic? Is this paid? Is this both? Does it just depend on your budget? Like when you think social, I mean, I think like my brain just often goes like, we invest a ton in organic content at Databox, so my brain goes there. But are you a fan of like, is this the right time to leverage paid in social alongside organic, or how do you think about this?
So I'm talking specifically from an organic standpoint. Okay. That is what we focus on. I do think that it's possible to leverage both together. One of the things that we do with clients, and one of the things I think I learned this first in-house, we allow organic social to kind of identify audiences or angles that we want to use with specific audiences, and then we use paid to kind of get in front of them faster. Or the client will use paid. We're not doing any paid execution, but that is one thing. Sometimes creative also. That doesn't always translate. So for an example, we had one meme that did really, really well for a client, and we had just like, hey, what if you tried this? And it worked out. And we've tried that with other types of creative, and it didn't work out. So that is a little bit iffy, but what we have seen consistent success around between the organic and paid partnership is figuring out ways or angles that you can use to target your audience, because that I think is a big component of paid anyway, is knowing how you're going to stop them, how you're going to target them directly, even if you are using targeting features within platforms.
I love that. Yeah, I know I've followed a couple other people that have been fans of that, where when they see something like really hit organically, they're like, ooh, if we put some spend behind this, it's going to like, pour gas on the fire. But they use organic as like the testing ground. Something you said, so looking at before, there's this thing I want to jump to. I'll tease it now that I want to ask my TCO question. What I want to jump to in a second here is like the blend of like nurturing and ongoing, growing and building a growing audience and putting out content that people want to hit the follow button for, so that you can bring, build a viewership on these platforms natively while you wait for the big for the big campaign to go out with the big offer. So I do want to get your thoughts on that. When you say in TCO, when you talk about targeting, you mentioned like we don't target everybody. It's a huge mistake people make. To clarify that, like you're not necessarily opposed to like if a company like Databox comes to you and says, hey, we're a pretty horizontal platform. We serve a lot of roles, a lot of verticals. Your point, I'm guessing, would just be like, right, but like in each campaign or social series of a campaign, talk to a specific user, build creative for that user, make an offer for that user. Then you can turn around the next week and do another one for the other audience, but don't try and talk to everybody all the time or make an offer for everybody.
Yes, that's exactly it. I think it also can be, there are a few different ways you can niche down your targeting. One is use case. So like in a case of like Databox, you might think about like use cases which may be applicable across different roles and maybe different like industries. Like someone wants to have an all-in-one dashboard for all of their metrics for marketing, right? Like they're pulling in from a different platforms. That works for me as an agency owner. It works for someone who is a CMO at a B2B or even a B2C company, right? But then there's also maybe role specific things. So for example, if you take a company that is, let's take Ramp, for example, your credit card, or I guess they're more than credit card, but let's say you're a fintech company, and you're thinking about finance, you may speak directly to a finance director who cares about reconciliation or accounting, making sure people are, financial controls and spending controls. And then you may also talk to a manager who may only care about like making sure that they can get things done fast. They don't want to get bogged down in having to do receipts and all of that and approvals. And so there may be different ways to talk to, there are different ways to target based on use cases or roles, which tend to kind of blend together depending on the product. But that is your premise is right. I'm not saying never to talk about different things, but campaigns should be focused on a specific thing if you want to actually resonate with an audience.
Okay, awesome. Creative, the C. Where do people go wrong here? Are they not fun enough? I know. So I'll give listeners an example. There's someone whose name has escaped me. I wish I could shout him out on Twitter/X, but he always posts about how like in B2C you need to make ugly ads because people like go for these like polished, beautiful brand ads that look like perfectly manicured. Yeah, that's it. Mm-hmm. Like everybody scrolls past him, and then like he'll have his clients do something that looks like, a 13-year-old did or whatever, like a really crude picture, mm-hmm. or like someone just holding up a sign or something that looks, I would say what works is it looks authentic and organic. And so people tend to like, I think we're like sort of trained psychologically to like scroll past those things because they look like ads. Like here's all this native organic stuff. Mm-hmm. Then like our brain knows without even reading it, like this is an ad, we scroll past it. So creative, what's the B2B version of that? Where do people make mistakes? What kind of creative do you see play the best?
Yeah, so I think this goes back, and I'll try to word this in a way that doesn't come off as a hot take because I'm tired of hot takes. Okay. But this is where I think the platform native content concept comes into play, because what Barry is essentially talking about is the same thing, right? I think in the last few years, everything became like lo-fi, UGC, make everything look like UGC, which there's some validity to that. But I think at a deeper level, what people are saying is make content like what everyone's consuming in this platform. What people consume on LinkedIn and the types of content they consume on LinkedIn is different from the content they consume on TikTok. And it's different from the content they consume on Twitter. On LinkedIn and Twitter, you have more text-heavy platforms. And if you ran all of your content in just text on LinkedIn, you'd be fine if you write good content, right? But if you try to write a blog post on TikTok, it would fail, right? Because that is not how people consume content on that platform.
Right.
So I think the creative aspect, it is neither just about being more fun and engaging or just about being lo-fi and quote unquote authentic. It is about creating content that matches the consumption habits of your audience on that platform. And so that requires you to actually know, what are people consuming on this platform? Are they engaging more with, and of course it will change over time. But for a while, carousels were the thing on LinkedIn, and they
Yeah.
still work. But it was like you could never escape a carousel in your feed if you scrolled for longer than 30 seconds on LinkedIn at one point. Now it's kind of like calmed down a little bit, and vertical or short form vertical videos are the thing now. And you can't escape those now. So it's like there are going to be moments where certain formats of content work better. And it is on the marketers to understand what is working for this platform today. And then when it changes, we need to update. Threads were a really, really, really big thing on Twitter. And then they kind of got deranked for long form posts. And now threads are kind of coming back. So it's always a matter of what is specific to that platform and what people are consuming there. And frankly, what the platforms are kind of boosting at the time. And then that is what you try to use as your barometer for creative.
Okay. I love it. All right. I'm trying, man, my brain's like on fire. I have so many things I want to ask you. So this is one way that we can generate pipeline, is running more campaigns, following this TCO framework. And we're primarily doing this organically. Now, my second question is, what are your thoughts around finding content? Like, what's the blend? You referenced Gary Vee, right? Gary Vee would be like the jab, 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 right hook. The way I'll word it is like, what's the balance or blend you find in B2B with, like, on one hand, you've got to post consistently enough and valuable enough content that people want to hit the follow button. They slow down and stop the scroll when your little brand icon comes up versus a person icon, because they're interested in what the square versus the circle has to say. Like, it's rare that brands enter that territory, I feel like, where like Marketing Millennials is a good example. There's a couple others where like people are willing to stop, engage with the meme, engage with the post. They like it. Like, most people will scroll past a brand. So what's the balance between growing your brand into something that people want to engage with, read, find valuable, with then like rolling out these campaigns so that these campaigns are actually more effective and you have a bigger organic audience to promote them to?
So I said I was going to try to stay away from hot takes. Here's one. I have not seen, there are a few exceptions. Databox might be one. I have not seen, generally speaking, that educational content works for brand accounts. Now,
okay,
everyone is going to fight with me on this. I know, but our audience wants education, but like our clients, our customers always ask us about it. Yes, they do, but they are not asking you for that on their social accounts. And what we've seen, generally speaking, again, there are a few exceptions. If you're a data aggregator, that is a clear exception. If you are creating or posting timely data or something that is absolutely novel, like no one else has access to it, that will work. But if that is like the core of your mix, like we're going to take our customer stories or we're going to take our case studies and try to create some tactical how-to content for our social, it's going to flop. And we've done this over dozens of clients, looked at the data, like it usually doesn't work. What I do think is a better content mix is, so we have 4 principles as part of our philosophy for building an organic social program. Number 1 is developing your identity. So it's all about taste profiles, your POV, your brand personality, and the visual identity around the brand. The second one is building a platform. That's all about what we call talent brand. So that's the founder-led stuff, and then subject matter experts and employee content. And then there's being a part of the community. Like, you have to be in the community. That is where Marketing Millennials and HubSpots and the others are winning, because their content feels like it's coming from a marketer, not a company. And the content resonates with marketers because it's speaking their language. And I think this kind of gets a little misconstrued, because I think a lot of companies think if you're not educating your audience, you're not actually driving results. But then the educational content doesn't drive results. The campaigns do from a brand account. What we like to do is focus on the engagement content. And again, this is kind of countercultural, but we like to focus on the engagement content because we know that we can build an audience that actually cares about the brand, that wants to come back and see what our brand is saying, that feels like, okay, this brand is part of our community. Again, I'll use a few examples. Look at what Ramp's doing now. Look at Beehive. Look at Triplewell in the early days. Look at HubSpot now on LinkedIn. Like, people kind of feel like these brands are marketers feel like these brands are part of their communities because they act like it. And then the fourth principle, for what it's worth, the fourth principle is bring it to life. And that's all about the campaigns and stuff like that. So to answer your question, sorry, more succinctly, is to focus on the engagement content to build that audience, to get people engaging, caring, wanting to look at what you're posting. And then the campaigns are all about driving that pipeline, all about. So if you want to see it as top of funnel with the engagement stuff and bottom of funnel, or middle of funnel, bottom of funnel with the campaigns, I think that's another way you can kind of view it.
Okay. Let's say now this is the $1 million question. So we've got listeners that are maybe running a B2B SaaS product for marketers or for finance or something. How do they find their unique approach on, I'm guessing we're talking brand account now, for the brand account for organic social that's going to resonate? What is going to build followers now? So if it's not the stereotypical educational content that everyone thinks of, what does that look like? Like, how do they find what resonates with their audience? Like, in some ways, like because it feels like a gradient almost. Like, you could write as a marketer to marketers so they feel like you're part of the community. You know, your brand is engaging in the comments and replying to people. Where is that, like, how do they find what they should be posting about them without jumping right to like the standard educational stuff?
I think that comes with like actually be in the community. That principle is a double entendre. So the brand has to be in the community, and you as the marketer behind the brand need to be in the community. You need to understand like what are people talking about. And I think this is one of the like very underrated parts of having a brand account, which is like, you can also do this from personal accounts, but having a brand account also puts the brand in the community. But it allows you to kind of see what people are doing. What are they actually talking about when the brands are not around, right? Like, what are they posting about on their day to day? And that's one of the biggest, I think, benefits to the way that Twitter handles followings versus like LinkedIn, because company pages, you don't get the feed, or I think they wrote it out for some folks. Nevertheless, I think the way that you figure it out, you have to be in a community, you have to know what people are talking about. And two, it's testing. I don't think there's a clear answer. The hardest thing, I think, is getting buy-in on this idea that educational content is not going to be the thing that actually drives the pipeline like we think. It's not going to be the thing that drives conversions like we think. I'm very big on nuance. So the nuance to that is there are opportunities or times where you have to do that, right? So maybe there's a big content push for something like a big ebook or a big benchmark report or things like that. By all means, post that stuff. But from our viewpoint, I think it's best to treat that as a campaign and to do something more than just post it. So there is that opportunity for you to post educational stuff. I'm not saying never do it. But I think if you're treating it as like, oh, okay, today we're going to give another tip on how to do this thing, it generally isn't going to work well. The other nuance, other caveat, I think, to that is if you're a large brand, you have brand awareness and recognition, you're what I call a household name in your category, you can do whatever you want and it's going to work. And I think sometimes people look at that and think that it'll apply to smaller and mid-sized brands, and it doesn't.
That's so true.
And so, like, knowing the differences there, but generally speaking, if you focus on using... I'll finish this thought. Sorry, my ADHD brain's
you're
going
good.
ahead of me.
I'm tracking. That's great.
If you focus on building engagement and being part of using your brand account to be a part of the community, that is where the talent brand and having a platform of founder-led content and senior level subject matter experts works for educating the market. This is how we bifurcate the two. Your senior level subject matter experts are all about educating the market on the product that you're building, the problem that you're solving, the product that you're solving, the progress that you're making on that problem. So when we go through this, one of the key things that we do when we're developing a talent brand program is name the problem. What is the problem that our product solves, our company is solving? Once we've named that, we're educating the market on this problem that they have. And then along the way, we're updating them, whether that's product launches or product updates, or maybe it's new data that we've gotten in. Maybe it is, it can be webinars and other things that allow us to use the humans as the connecting point of trust. People won't trust your brands anymore. They will trust the people behind the brands, because B2B is a handshake business. They will trust the people behind the brands, and that is where your credibility is going to come from. Your brand is there to build community. Your people are there to build credibility. And that is how you treat those two and bifurcate those two programs.
So basically,
sorry, that was a lot.
No, you hit on something I was going to ask about. So I love this. So yeah, to your point, like you've got, so the point of view is like, what is the problem? What do we believe about that problem? What do we believe the best approach to solving that problem is? And that's the kind of stuff that people would often bake under education and put it under the brand. You're advocating, use that for your founder brand. Take your C-suite, take your directors, get them active on LinkedIn or social or whatever, and have them post from their personal account, because that will get awareness and engagement. And then do the more like the non-educational stuff on the brand account, and use the brand account for the big campaign pushes and the offers and things like that.
You would also use the founder accounts and the people to do the big campaigns also.
Sure. Yeah.
So those work in tandem. It isn't just like do the campaigns only on the brand account. But I do think moving the educational content from the brand, the faceless, humanless brand as we see them, as we scroll our feeds, to a human that I could ascribe trust and credibility to. This person has X amount of years of experience. They've done this thing. I can talk to them when I get on a webinar, et cetera, et cetera. That, I think, is a big shift in B2B social strategies that more people are catching on to, but it's still very early, and I think it's working well for our clients as we do it.
And then for the brand accounts, we got to wrap here. I'll take questions in a minute. So I promised 20 to 30 minutes, but I knew like this has just got me going. So we're going a few minutes over here. We've got two questions in the chat. Claudio and Elena, we'll get to your questions in just a minute. If you're watching on LinkedIn, YouTube, whatever, I think you can just reply in a post or in the live chat on YouTube, like wherever you are natively or on Riverside. Drop your questions in the chat and we will answer them in just a minute here. So you mentioned with this that like on the brand account, it sounds like it's super crucial that it's a subject matter expert who's a member of the community themselves running that brand account. And so it's not educational content per se, but it just is, it should basically everyone's got to figure out on their own through testing, through trial and error, through hiring someone like you to help them do this. But at the end of the day, like it sounds like if you get a subject matter expert behind the keyboard who's a part of the community, actively listening, engaging, whatever, and they just start entering the conversation, that's what you want to focus on doing as like your ongoing feed for the organic brand account. And then you're doing these campaigns, and then you're reserving the POV, pain way, talking about the pain and the education for the founder brand and the people in your company.
Yes. The insights, all of that happens from the people. But I want to double click on something because I think you said it, but I want to make sure the audience gets this part. When we're talking about creating POVs or doing a talent brand program or platform, what we're saying is senior level subject matter experts. One mistake I see happening a lot with people, and you may call this employee advocacy. We're marketers. We have to create new jargon terms. So
it's part of the job description.
But when you're creating an employee advocacy program, a lot of brands just go to whomever is willing, and whoever just wants to do it first. And that may be someone like if you are selling a cybersecurity product, you now have your marketing team trying to educate the market on cybersecurity. They're not cybersecurity experts. Their followers are not generally cybersecurity experts. And anyone who is a cybersecurity expert does not want to hear from a marketer. And so like you need to have senior level because of the experience and the insights that they've learned over time. They need to be subject matter experts. So you don't want your CMO being the one creating content about cybersecurity. You want whoever is your chief security officer or your chief technology officer creating that content because they have the real insights, the real things to say, not, a random marketer or a salesperson. And so figuring that part out is a very crucial piece that I think a lot of people are missing with the employee advocacy stuff.
Okay, awesome. I'm going to add one more thing that I swear we're getting to questions. I promise it's the very next thing. What this is all making me think is, I don't know if you follow Gaetano Dinardi on LinkedIn.
Yes.
SEO, growth wizard. So he's been on the show and he's got a lot of these like you, I don't like the phrase like hot takes, right? But counter he's kind of swimming upstream. Like recently, a lot of his posts have been around stop creating like middle top of funnel SEO. Like just use SEO for bottom of funnel. Because a lot of people are thinking for SEO here's all these search phrases we could rank for, right? And we'll just drive mass traffic, and that's building brand. It's introduced them to the logo. Not saying right or wrong, right? The people take different perspectives. He's a big advocate of just publish what's working, which is like bottom of funnel. Like we can tie bottom of funnel demand capture intent to like bottom of funnel SEO. And I feel like there's a strong parallel here. It's like most marketers are saying like, oh, your brand account has to be doing this, that, the other thing. And you're just kind of saying like, just do this, just focus on the energy. Like, don't worry about all this stuff. Cause at the end of the day, like you're all doing this activity that you think you should do, similar to like SEO. Well, our keyword research told us like, look at all these terms and these quadrants we could go for. And it's like, how much revenue ultimately is it driving? And so you're hyper zoning in. It's like, not that people can't do all the other stuff, but you're just trying to say, hey, if you want to be able to attribute directly to revenue, look down here. So that's something. Yeah.
Yes, that's a very good point. I think it's hard to to kind of come around to because it ultimately means saying no to things, and as marketers, we don't like to say no to things. Maybe I should speak for myself. I shouldn't speak for all marketers. I don't like to say no to things. That's exactly it. Like there are a few things that work, and I think that the SEO analogy is actually right because like if I'm clicking something and you're like trying to sell me a solution, I'm only going for the answer that I was looking for on the search engine. So it doesn't really work. Maybe, yeah, that's interesting. But yes, anyway, simplify. Because what works is what works, and it'll be much easier to sell on what works than what works plus what may not work, but it's unclear of like what's going on. And now your CMO is like, we're cutting it all.
Yeah. Yep. All right, let's take these questions. If there's time at the end, we'll keep jamming on the rest of my stuff. Claudio asks, let me see, I could show this on stream here. Boom. What is the best proportion of content for brand awareness / engagement and content to drive website traffic or sales? So yeah, I asked a version. I like the way Claudio phrased this. I asked a version of this earlier. What's the blend that you use between like you need awareness, engagement, like you need to build follows up so your organic reaches further, but then like bottom of funnel results are actually driving people to your website?
So the way that I see it, if we're talking about a brand account, the way that I see it is like almost a 60-40, 70-30 split, which is like, to Gary's point, jab, 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 right hook. There's a reason there are 3 jabs before you hook. The bulk of your content is focused on building engagement, goodwill with the community and the audience that you're trying to target. And then when it's time to make a splash, when it's time to announce a new product or a new campaign, by the way, I didn't mention this. We generally recommend that companies run 1 or 2 campaigns per quarter. Okay. So if you have a very high volume product cycle, and so you're shipping a lot of products, you're probably going to be doing more than that, and then you need to develop a tiering system to figure out what gets the biggest treatment. But if you are doing that, those are your moments to drive a ton of traffic. But the other thing that I think gets missed in this is you think if we're only doing engagement, we're not driving any traffic. And that's not the case. Over time, as people become aware of your brand, they're checking it out, they're looking at it. You will see the spike or the growth over time in the web traffic. And then those campaigns give you those big spikes that you're looking for.
Awesome. Love it. Claudio, if you have any other follow-up questions, drop them in the chat here. We'll keep tackling. Elena asks, oh, it's a big one. All right, here it goes on screen. How does TCO work for a B2C services company, financial planning / wealth management, for example, when we have 3 different niches we go after, or does it not? Is this specific to organic versus paid?
Oh, that's a good question. So I think it still works because this is a funny thing. You're marketing to people either way. So at the end of the day, you're going to be marketing to people. And people, whether they have the title of chief executive officer or they don't have any title, they're a human. So the psychology behind it still works. In terms of how to do it when you have multiple niches, I think the best way to think about it is, again, segment out. This campaign is going to focus, that's the targeting part. Like, we're going to target this niche with this campaign. We're going to target this niche with this campaign, or this segment of our audience with this campaign. If it's something like financial planning and wealth management, we have a client that's in that space. And they have it split out based on like the journey of a financial advisor. And so like, I think it's a very similar way to think about it. All right. Here's someone who may have X amount of assets and revenue. The challenges for someone with Y assets of under management may be this much, this challenge, and then so on and so forth. And so that's how you target those different niches. And then I think in terms of organic or paid, I think it works on both. I can't give very tactical suggestions or advice about paid because it's not a service that we run. I can say from having consumed content and being adjacent to the space, I do think that the framework works on both. But then there are like smaller nuances that I wouldn't be able to speak to. But if you do this for organic, it should work. If you focus on targeting a specific niche, creating creative that speaks to them, that gives them a specific, that speaks from a specific angle, and then you give them an offer that they can't resist, it should work.
Okay. Awesome. So follow up here from Elena. Are you saying do a different campaign each week or each month, or can it just vary?
So that depends on what's happening in your org. Again, if you have a high velocity like product cycle, or if this is like a service company, if you're offering a new service, then anytime there's like something happening that is new, it's probably a good opportunity to evaluate whether or not you should create a campaign around it. So a new service offering, create a campaign. If you are a product company, obviously, then a new product, if it's a tier, we break them out into 3 tiers, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. Tier 1 products always get a campaign, and it's big. I think in terms of the frequency, we look at it as every month or every other month, depending on, again, the cycle of it. And then, so it'll vary based on the company and how often you're shipping new stuff. But generally speaking, you shouldn't go a single quarter without a new campaign. Now, the hard thing is you're going to want to do more and more and like come up with a new thing and a new thing. Like, find something that you really think resonates with your audience and focus on driving that one thing and building that frequency and memory with that audience until you have a new thing to launch.
You know what's interesting? You're making me think. Like, I think I probably would have gone along to some degree with like brand account should educate. I would have worded it differently. I would say, your brand account should deliver value natively and contextually within the platform the audience is on, which maybe you wouldn't disagree with. And maybe that's different than like the generic education. But what you're making me think is like, I just thought of like Loom or like Riverside, the product that we're using now. It's like I don't really want to hear from Riverside on social until they have something new to tell me. Like there's something there to that, which is really counterintuitive because I think we look at it as consumers or customers. We look at a lot of B2C brands and we're like, yeah, but we're willing to follow those. Like B2C is a little different in that like I'm willing to hit the follow button. And there's something there where like those brands focus on making you feel a certain way. Like marketers will talk about like they're selling an emotion or an experience or an identity, right? Like if I get into hunting and there's some outdoors thing, it's like I want to follow them because they're making me feel like if I purchase this stuff or like get into this or follow this, like I'm this new person or I'm learning this new skill and I enter into this like, and they're selling a feeling or an experience, not just a product because the product's not changing that much. And I wonder like, this is more just like a fun question, but it's like, is in B2B, is this not true? Because either like if B2B did this more, would I want to follow them more? So like if a project management app or if Loom sold me the vision of a calmer workplace, if that's even possible in the way a B2C brand would I be more apt to follow them? Or is there just a wall or a divide in B2B where like I truly just don't want to hear from Loom till they have a new feature to tell me about. Then I actually like care because I'm a product user and I want to know like what's new with them.
Yeah, I think the former is true. And we've basically that has been a huge part of our thesis when I started the agency. Is I think more people will follow us or more people will follow B2B brands if they market it in the way that B2C brands market it. Again, if you look at the surface, you're going to say like, oh, more memes or, vertical video or TikTok dances or things like that. And that's not it. What you said about B2C marketing is exactly it. Selling an emotion, I think, does more to get the audience's trust than trying to sell a product or product features. I think more people would follow. And if you think about the B2B brands that you do follow, go and like look like the ones you actually pay attention to. Because sometimes we all follow brands that we don't pay attention to. We just like have heard, their name, or maybe we bought their product and we want to stay updated, but we don't exactly engage with them. But think about the brands that you do engage with, the ones you see and you're like, click, like, laugh at that. That was funny. That was hilarious. I'm going to send this to. It is all selling emotion. And I think it's hard for B2B brands to B2B marketers to see it that way because it feels like you should be selling a product because it feels like, again, it's a handshake business. So everything feels like it should be sales led, which I don't think people want to see in their feeds.
Yeah.
So I think that's very much it. I will say, though, one of the biggest challenges holding brands back from doing this is not actually having a clear, strong POV. I think a lot of like when we talk to brands, some feel like they have a POV, but it never makes it to the marketing materials. Or to the degree it makes it to the marketing materials, it's hidden under feature-driven language. Or like, oh, we can do this, thing faster, or we can do it. And there's a use case for those type of value props. But Loom isn't just about having less meetings. That's fine. It's about a calmer workplace. Calmer workplace is an emotion. Less meetings is something that you can kind of measure, is measurable, and when it's time to sell the product, that is exactly what you should be talking about. It may not exactly, though, be what you market on a daily basis for social, right? Yeah. And figuring out a way to just have a distinct POV that you can kind of lead on in order to sell that emotion.
This is so true. We just had like a leadership like offsite at Databox where Pete and Darien unveiled the company strategy, and part of that strategy was saying things that we believe about the future and our place in it. And like an example of that is like it's a core belief of Databox that more companies should transparently share data. Like And it's like, yeah, not every company believes that. Like some people believe you should only surface revenue and performance numbers to the C-suite, and like people should not know that. You got to keep it under wraps or keep it private, right? And it's like it's one of the perspectives that we take, and it's like, okay, so yeah, like what could we do with that more? Like how could we like wave the flag or beat the drum for that point of view? Or like Basecamp is a good example in the B2B world of like we don't believe that like they believe that there's a certain type of remote work that's the right way to, and they like built they're one of the rarest examples where they started with a POV and they built their product around it. And I think that's like the ultimate dream state, because when you get there, it's like, if you agree with this POV, we're the only product that like is built to serve that POV. Otherwise, you're just going to be stringing tools together. So I totally agree with this. Like not enough brands have it. And I think it's a superpower for marketing if they can have it. All right, my last question. I'm going to ask a question here around the subject matter expert part. Let's use the cybersecurity example. This is a two-part question. I'll use cybersecurity and Databox as an example. Cybersecurity, are you advocating, like, definitely it sounds like the individuals, the founder-led content or the people-led content for the brand should be subject matter experts in the community that are posting. But are you also advocating that that's the person, like, behind the brand account, or that the marketing team is interviewing that person to source, like, does the brand account for that cybersecurity company, does that need to come from a subject matter expert, whether it's the CTO herself, like posting behind the thing, or like, is it, or does the marketing team like need to tap into that and draw content from that? Like, how do you, when the marketers running the social account are not the subject matter experts, what do they do?
So that is a great question. Ideally, the person running the account has an interest in the space that they are running, the same space as the company. It can be a subject matter expert. It doesn't have to be. But if you're not a subject matter expert, and this is going to sound a little harsh, and you're not and you don't have interest in the field, you probably shouldn't be running the account. And the only reason why is you don't have an ability, you won't be able to effectively build community with the other folks in that space. So my belief is it doesn't have to be a subject matter expert. You need to have an interest in learning the space and learning the conversations. I'm not a subject matter expert in e-commerce. And I think most people who I know now from social media are in e-commerce because I just like threw myself into it. Another example of this from the like subject matter expert side, and this is super interesting. Coinbase is hiring a new social person, and they're like, they're hiring for Twitter specifically, I believe. And their philosophy is we want someone who loves crypto. You don't have to be like a crypto engineer, but you have to love crypto. You have to be willing to deep dive into crypto so that you're able to be part of the community. I think that is the right philosophy, and every brand should treat their brand accounts that way if they are going to follow the model of brand accounts build community. Okay. You can't build it otherwise.
This is the second part of my question of follow-up, which is like, we're exploring leaning heavier into our partnerships next year. And it made me think, like, I'm curious, have you ever seen this executed well where, like, let's say a company like Databox, where we're serving a variety of verticals, a variety of roles. Is there a world where you've ever seen this successful where, like, you work with partners to be the drivers behind, like, the brand social content? Like, if your partners are subject matter experts and your marketers aren't, can partners ever be responsible to either run the social or take it over for a week? Or is there some kind of interplay you've ever seen successfully done?
I don't know if I've ever seen it as a long-term strategy. I have seen it on one-off occasions. We used to, or we have run at a previous company before, a partnership with, like, a collab with one of our technology partners. And it was a product collab though, which allowed us to kind of like hit both bases. And when I mean a product collab, like, we created some merch that allowed us to like send it out to their team, send it out to our team. This is another point about the campaigns, and I'm sorry to beat this drum so much, but like, if you do campaigns well, and especially if you're going to do a merch based campaign, it is a great ABM enabler, and like having merch that you can send out to your top prospects is a great thing. It's also a great way to get buy-in from the CMO and like other people. Nevertheless, so we have done that. I have seen that work on one-off occasions. I haven't seen it work as like a long-term, like constantly have people come in. As a social strategy, I have seen it work as a webinar strategy. But I don't know. That would be interesting. I'd be curious to see how that went. To have partners constantly like jump in and take over the socials.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how it worked. It just made me think like, oh, okay, like yeah. Either way, I'm super bullish, and I think this is going to be a trend we see moving forward. I totally think there will be marketing teams that in the future like get dedicated budget to hire a subject matter expert, then use that person to like create the body of like messaging or content or whatever that they then like. You're still going to need a team of marketers to sort of like to transfer it or like publish it across things or format it the right way. But like, I think more and more people are going to realize like having subject matter experts in a way that marketers are not is like a cheat code. So
you mean when you say partners, you mean like an individual, not a company?
Correct.
Oh yes, no, I have seen that work well. Yes,
Okay,
100%. I am very, very bullish on that. Yes.
Okay. Amazing.
Yeah.
I feel like it's something we have to explore. All right, we are at time. I want to be respectful of your time. I could chat with you. We could probably keep going for another hour, no problem. But this has been awesome. Thank you to everyone who dropped questions in the chat. Darien, if people want to work with you, where should they do that? If they want to learn more, they want to follow up with some questions, where do you want them to reach out to you?
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn and Twitter at Darien Payton, or on Twitter or LinkedIn rather, it's /n/Darien Payton. Or if you want to learn more about Antidote and what we do, you can go to antidotemedia.co, and you can learn more about us and reach out from there.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. This was awesome.
Thanks so much, Jeremiah.